Welcome to Meteorology Matters, the podcast where we try to break down the big weather events affecting us all.
We really aim to cut through the noise and focus on what's important.
And today, well, we have to talk about the recent severe weather outbreak across the central U.S. It's been devastating.
Truly devastating, especially the events in Kentucky and Missouri. We want to try and understand, what happened before, during, and after these tornadoes.
Exactly. And if you want to keep digging deeper into weather like this, you should definitely follow meteorologist Rob Jones. He's on Instagram as Meteorologist.
Right, and on TikTok, he's TV Meteorologist.
And don't forget YouTube, search for Rob Jones Hurricane. That's where you'll also find the Meteorology Matters podcast playlist.
Yeah, lots more content there.
Okay, so let's start with the impact. The sheer scale of this.
Yeah.
It's immense.
It really is. The reports coming in suggest more than 24 weather-related deaths across the central U.S. Just terrible numbers.
Looking at Kentucky first, Laurel County was hit incredibly hard by a tornado on Friday.
Yeah, the reports are at least 19 fatalities there and 10 serious injuries.
And the really worrying part is officials saying that number, the death toll, it could actually go up.
3 people were apparently still in critical condition on Sunday.
And the physical destruction. Hundreds of homes damaged, vehicles just tossed aside.
We heard from Zach Wilson, a resident there in Kentucky. His parents' house was ruined.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, and he talked about trying to salvage valuables, the irreplaceable things like pictures and papers.
It really brings home the personal side of it, doesn't it? Beyond the statistics.
Absolutely. Then if we look over at St. Louis, Missouri, the impact was also, substantial.
What were the figures there?
5 reported deaths and 38 injuries. And the property damage, over 5,000 homes affected in some way.
Wow, 5,000.
Yeah. City inspectors have been out condemning structures that are just unsafe. The mayor's asked people to steer clear of those damaged areas. It's still dangerous.
Understandable. And the tornado itself in St. Louis, do we know much about its characteristics?
We do, yeah. It looks like it started in Clayton, traveled at least 8 miles.
8 miles?
And the winds, estimated peak winds hit 150 miles per hour.
That's incredibly powerful.
It is. And get this, the maximum width was estimated at about a mile.
A mile wide? Goodness.
Yeah, and its path actually took it through parts of Forest Park, even near the St. Louis Zoo.
Just shows how indiscriminate these things are.
Exactly. And tragically, it wasn't just those 2 areas. Scott County, also in Missouri, took a direct hit.
Oh, no.
Another tornado there killed 2 people, injured several others, and, again, destroyed multiple homes. It was just a widespread event.
It sounds like it. And were there other impacts besides the main tornadoes?
Yes, definitely. The whole system was massive. There were reports of tornadoes up in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, too.
And significant dust blown around in Illinois, even affecting Chicago.
Really? Dust storms?
Yeah, connected to the strong winds with the system.
Yeah.
And then further east, tragically, 2 deaths in the Virginia suburbs near D.C.
How'd that happen?
Falling trees brought down by the winds associated with the storms moving through. It just highlights the very dangers from a large system like this.
It really does. So with all this destruction, the big question is about warnings and preparation. Were people alerted?
Well, it's important to point out the National Weather Service, or NOAA as we often call it, they did issue alerts over the weekend. They warned about, and this is their phrase, a multitude of hazardous weather across the U.S.
So not just tornadoes?
No, not at all. Thunderstorms, large hail out on the plains, heavy mountain snow in the west, even dangerous heat down south. It was a complex setup.
Right. And for Kentucky and Missouri specifically, the area's already hit.
There were continued warnings about thunderstorms even after the tornadoes had passed, which, poses huge problems for communities trying to recover.
Absolutely. You're already dealing with devastation, and then more storms threaten.
Exactly. And St. Louis Fire Chief Dennis Jenkerson gave some really important advice.
What did he say?
Basically urging people, with more weather coming, to find a safe place before it hits. Don't wait.
Good advice.
Yeah, and he even suggested something quite commendable, asking people whose homes were safe to maybe invite neighbors over if their places weren't secure. That community spirit.
That's really something, looking out for each other.
Meanwhile, in Kentucky, Governor Andy Beshear said survey teams were expected, I think, Monday to start assessing damage.
That's for the federal disaster aid process.
Exactly, to get that ball rolling. And it just shows the scale. Some of the state roads that were closed, maybe 24 of them, it could take days to reopen them.
Days.
Yeah.
Just underlines the disruption.
It does. And, when we see events like this, it's sometimes helpful to step back and look at the broader picture of tornadoes in the U.S.
Okay, what's the general context?
Well, on average, the U.S. gets about 1,200 tornadoes a year. It's a lot.
1,200, right.
But there was some interesting research back in 2018. It suggested a potential shift.
A shift in what way?
In where the deadliest tornadoes are happening more frequently. Moving a bit away from the traditional tornado alley plains towards the south, which is often more densely populated, that raises different kinds of risks.
I see. That's a significant finding. And what about the timing? When is tornado season usually?
It varies a bit. For the southern plains, think May into early June typically. But down on the Gulf Coast, the season can peak earlier, more in the spring.
And Kentucky.
Yeah.
Has it seen major tornadoes before this? Obviously, this was terrible, but historically.
Sadly, yes. The deadliest one on record for Kentucky was way back in 1890 in Louisville, a huge loss of life then.
1890.
And more recently, people will remember the devastating tornadoes in December 2021. That wasn't that long ago, and it caused mass fatalities, too.
So Kentucky's definitely vulnerable.
It is. And this latest event brings up another difficult issue that's been talked about quite a bit.
Yeah.
Staffing challenges at the National Weather Service, at NOAA.
Ah, yes. I heard something about that.
Yeah.
Staffing cuts.
That's right. Pretty significant ones. Over 560 employees lost due to actions under the previous administration, apparently.
Over 500. That's a lot for a critical service like weather forecasting.
It is. And the office in Jackson, Kentucky, the one that covers many of these areas, just hit so hard. It's one of several that are short-staffed.
And what does that mean practically?
Well, for one thing, it means they aren't routinely operating 24/7 anymore.
That sounds risky, especially with severe weather.
It certainly raises concerns. But it's really important to highlight the dedication of the folks working there.
Okay.
Despite being short-staffed, the meteorologists at the Jackson office saw this severe weather outbreak coming. They knew it was serious.
So what do?
They made the call. They brought everyone in for the overnight shift anyway. They knew they had to be there to issue warnings and support the local emergency managers.
Wow. So they stepped up despite the limitations.
Absolutely. We heard from a NOAA employee who wanted to stay anonymous, basically saying the staff knew they had to bring everyone in. It was about saving lives with those warnings.
That's incredible commitment. Really speaks volumes.
It really does. And the union that represents these employees,
What's their take?
their representative made it clear that even with the staffing shortages, the accuracy and the timeliness of the warnings issued for these tornadoes were not affected.
Okay, that's reassuring. The warnings got out effectively.
Yes, which is a credit to the skill of the staff they do have.
So are steps being taken to fix this staffing problem?
Well, NOAA has announced some opportunities. About 155 spots for meteorologists and other specialists to transfer into understaffed offices, including Jackson.
So that's a start, at least.
It's a positive step, yes. But the underlying concern, it seems, might still be there.
Meaning?
Meaning, the same NOAA staff member warned that if these shortages persist long-term, we could see more offices having to cut back hours.
Which could lead to?
Potentially, yeah. Missed forecasts, or maybe just increased burnout for the forecasters who are there, especially with things like hurricane season coming up. That's a huge workload.
That's a really sobering thought. Burnout is one thing, but missed forecasts.
Exactly. And it's not a new concern either. Former directors at the Weather Service have actually warned in the past about staffing levels.
Dang what?
Warning that inadequate staffing could tragically lead to needless loss of life if forecasts or warnings are compromised.
So these aren't just operational issues. They have real-world, potentially life and death consequences.
That's the core of the concern, yes.
Okay. So wrapping this up, we've talked about the absolutely devastating impact of these recent tornadoes, particularly in Kentucky and Missouri.
Yeah, the human cost, the physical destruction.
We've looked at the warnings that went out, the preparations, the advice given.
And the community response, too, like the fire chief's suggestion.
Right. And then this critical context of the challenges facing NOAA, the National Weather Service, with staffing.
Mm-hmm. The dedication of the staff versus the resource constraints they're facing.
It really leaves you with a question, doesn't it? As we potentially face more severe weather events, maybe more frequently, maybe more intensely.
Yeah, what's the right balance? How do we ensure that the dedicated professionals doing this vital work have the support and the resources they truly need?
What level of investment is necessary to protect public safety effectively in the face of these powerful forces of nature?
That's the question to ponder.
A really vital point. And just a reminder for everyone listening, if you want to stay informed and explore more about the science behind weather, do follow meteorologist Rob Jones. He's on Instagram, Meteorologist.
TikTok, TV meteorologist.
And on YouTube, search for Rob Jones Hurricane. You'll find his channel and the Meteorology Matters podcast playlist there, too.
Lots of great info.
Thanks for tuning in to Meteorology Matters.